So you've done everything you're supposed to do. You got the will in place, you did your estate plan, but the inevitable happens. What do you do in the first 30 days after a farmer dies? Hi, I'm Jason Wagner, the farm lawyer. I work with family farmers every single day to help them pass the farm on to the next generation. At my law firm, Wagner Ayler, we've been doing it for over 50 years. Watch this video to learn more. When a farmer dies, the estate administration begins. And at this point, it's important to know who's going to act and what authority they have to act. One of the first things we need to keep in mind is that the power of attorney automatically terminates when a person dies. There's nothing I can do to make that power of attorney continue after death. It's there to help somebody pay their bills, manage their finances while they're living and incapacitated. But by law, there's the moment of death, there's nothing more that you can do with it. So we have to now turn to the rest of the estate planning documents, like the trust or the will, and sometimes how assets are actually owned to see what we can do next. So when I'm working with a client, sometimes they say when it's time to sign the estate plan, man, I feel like I'm signing a lot of documents today. Why can't we just make this simple? Well, we want you to have a good comprehensive estate plan that covers incapacity and death and financial as well as medical, and each of those items must come from a different source of authority. So we're thinking about the power of attorney and the healthcare directive and the trust and the trustee and the will and the personal representative. Each of them have an important but distinct role in making sure that your estate plan carries out your wishes. So in those first 30 days, we already know the power of attorney goes away automatically. But how do we access bank accounts? What's going to get frozen? With joint bank accounts, which is very common with married couples, we can keep going on as normal. The one owner dies, the other owner or owners get to keep managing that account. They don't have to get new checks. They don't have to open a new bank account. They don't have to have the account frozen. They can do business as normal because everybody on a joint bank account has joint control and joint access and joint authority. But what if there is no joint owner? Well, now we have to look at, is there a beneficiary or a pay on death? Now, a lot of times we've done the estate plan, clients come in and we're talking about the trust funding. People are very good at making sure we get beneficiaries on things like life insurance or retirement accounts. But then I ask about the bank accounts and, I get I think we did that. Or I didn't know we could put beneficiaries on bank accounts. Even my checking account? Yes, for sure. We can do that. And sometimes it's called a pay on death, or it's a beneficiary or a TOD, POD. They're all the same. It's all about who's going to own this account when the person that owns it now dies. Now, if you have a beneficiary designation, that's good, because that allows us to access that account. Usually you're still going to need a death certificate and you might need to fill out some beneficiary forms, but that's not going to take, it's not going to be frozen for a long period of time. What if we get into a situation where there's no joint owner, there's no beneficiary, and that account is now frozen? That account is going to stay frozen for a minimum of 30 days. And there's two ways for you to get access to it at that point. One way is through an affidavit of collection of personal property, or what I call a small estate affidavit. So what this does is it allows you to access that bank account if the bank account plus all other assets that might be subject to probate are less than $75,000. If that's not true, this is not an option for us. But right on that form, it says it's been at least 30 days since this person has died. So by definition, we can't even use this form in the first 30 days. Now, if we can't use this form because the value of the account's over 75,000, which can be, pretty common in farm checking accounts, we have to go through probate. Now, a big piece of this estate plan was trying to avoid probate, but here we are. Well, if we're stuck and we have an asset that there's no POD and no beneficiary, we've got to go through probate. We're not going to end this estate sooner by waiting. So if we're going to have to go through probate, rip off the Band-Aid and get filed. The least amount of value that we have going through probate, the better, but we have to go through it and do it. And that is where the will comes into place. The will is going to designate a personal representative, sometimes also called an executor. It's this person's job to administer the probate assets, which might just be one asset out of all the assets that you own. It might just be that one bank account, but we've got to open it, and that executor's got to get in and do it. Now, the power of attorney, the trustee, the personal representative, these are all different roles with different duties and different authority, but it can be the same person carrying out everything across these roles. That's very common, but each one has a different hat they're wearing while they're doing that function. If you have a trust-based estate plan, that will is something that we usually call a pour-over will. And so what that means is, hey, if I die and I have probate assets, I instruct you, personal representative, to get this over to the trustee as quickly as possible. So now that trustee can open a new checking account in the name of the trust and start pulling these assets into it. There they can pay bills, pay any final taxes that are owed, and eventually distribute that account out to the beneficiaries. While we're talking about banking, in the first 30 days, it's a good time to start collecting those bank statements and financial account statements that show the value as of the date of death. So if you die in November, we want to see, the November, December bank statements. Get those together. Eventually, we're going to have to file an estate tax return. That's not due until 9 months after death, but the steps that you take in the first 30 days after death can really help set us up for success when we file that estate tax return. Things like gathering up those date of death statements. Also, we want to be thinking about hiring an appraiser. Who's going to be responsible for doing that? Who's going to communicate with the appraiser? A lot of times, I like to be the one to do it for my clients, so that way I can let the appraiser know exactly what we need. What we need as far as why we're ordering the appraisal, what the effective date of that appraisal will be. Maybe I'm thinking about that I want the appraisal broken out in a certain way if we're going to be making some estate tax elections with the family farmland deduction or with the distribution of the estate. So that way I've got it teased out and tied out to different parcels. I do like to order that appraisal in the first 30 days so that gives us a better idea of what to expect when we file that estate tax return. Are we going to owe estate tax? Are we going to have to deduct some farmland? Are we going to put some assets into a credit shelter trust? The more information we have, the earlier, the better plan we can have by the time we file that estate tax return. Which leads us into another important thing we need to do in the first 30 days. Identify who's going to do what. If you haven't worked with a lawyer before, this might be the first time you're hiring one. You've been named as a trustee, and now you need to work with mom or dad's farm lawyer to make sure that their estate is handled appropriately. It is critical that you work with a qualified farm lawyer in an estate administration. Farm estates are very complex, and they're not like normal estates. We're thinking about estate taxes, very special and unique deductions, as well as trying to operate the farm business while this is all going on. So you need to make sure that you're working with the right attorney to move that forward. What about income taxes? Now, if mom or dad didn't work with a CPA before, now's an important time. There's going to be the final year of income taxes. There may be fiduciary taxes through the estate or the trust. Plenty of my clients file their own taxes. So, maybe nobody else has looked at it in a long time. We need to get other professionals on board. Let's line this up, make sure everybody's on the same page. We know who's doing what. Again, the earlier the better. It's going to help you in the long run to make sure that the estate goes smoothly. In the first 30 days, it can also be a good time to share what's in the estate plan if the rest of the family hasn't seen it before. Now, I advise my clients pretty frequently to share their wishes with their family. Maybe I don't advise them to share everything, but at least give an idea It depends on the circumstances. Like to say, they'd much rather hear it from you than from me. But I also have to be realistic. I live and practice in Minnesota. We're Germans and Scandinavians, and we like to hold things close to the chest and not talk about our feelings. It's okay, you know. So it might be the first time some people are seeing this estate plan. But we want to get that estate plan out so that we're giving everybody an opportunity to review it. We're also giving them a limited time to object to it. Under Minnesota law, we have 120 days for beneficiaries to object to a trust if we've provided adequate and proper notice. This is something we routinely do because it helps protect your estate plan. We want to make sure we're preparing for any objections and protecting your plan. So if you're dealing with a loss and you're ready to get started on the farm estate administration, give us a call at 507-288-5567. Our attorneys work with the state administration every day. We work with family farmers every day. As I said, we've been doing it for over 50 years. For more information, check out farmlawyer.com, subscribe to my channel, or follow me on Facebook.